All right. It is indeed a very, very good morning to you. It is a very, very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. It is another Wednesday. It is the 22nd of March 2023. Tarehe 22 mwezi wa 3 mwaka 2023. Natumai ya kwamba uko salama. Mkazo Nairobi is a bit chilly. Baridi imeanza Nairobi kidogo. Ndio unavyoona pale nyuma kidogo. Mawingu yametanda kidogo, ulikuwa na mvua hapa na pale, lakini basi mambo imeanza kutulia. Traffic jam pia imezidi pale. Yes, Siasa Wednesday edition of the 22nd of March 2023. Tarehe 22 mwezi wa 3 mwaka 2023. Natumai kwamba uko salama, mka vizuri kama kawaida. Unijeni please like, when you like, we get to know that you are watching us, and that you like, please share, and you share, you give someone else an opportunity to watch the broadcast. Please share. Ukiingia piga share, unijeni please share, when you share, you give someone else an opportunity to watch the broadcast. Kama tuko na Daktari Ekuru Aukot leo amemove from Friday ako leo Wednesday kwa Siasa Wednesday, na tunasubiri majority leader in the Senate Cheruiyot anasema anaingia very soon, very shortly atakuwa hapa ndani na sisi. Kama uko na swali please send it to us. If you have any questions, please send it to us on our inbox. Ameweza tutumia kwenye comment section. Kama kuna swali ambalo nataka tuzungumzie leo, please send it to us on the comment section, alafu tuweze kujua namna gani. Haya, najua Ekuru ataleta vita, lakini lazima tuombe kama kawaida, tuende mbele za Mungu tuombe. Alafu basi tukirudi kuja kuona nani ameweza kwa
people who go to church. And I have no problem. The only problem I have, Bitok, and I've said this to you many times, is the level of pretense in our society. We pray before food, we pray in restaurants, we pray in political rallies, but we do the opposite. And I think it's about time we prick our conscience as a nation, and maybe let prayers be silent and private. It's your relationship with God. This matter of displays. Economy is going bad, let's pray. Bandits are killing people, let's pray.
Ndio Mungu aingilie kati. Unajua
pesa zinaibiwa za umma, let's pray. I have no problem. Let's pray, but at least let's also be truthful. When Gachagua, for example, says that we are truthful men, he says we inherited empty coffers in this country when they took over power. But look at the amount of money that is spent by their offices. So why do we spend money that we don't have? Is that being a truthful man? Okay, on back to
I think I'm the only truthful man left. Right.
Ulikuwa bishop siku moja. Sijui kwa nini uliache.
Na once a bishop always a bishop. Unajua zingine pia mambo ya dunia inazidi kidogo, maji inazidi unga, lakini
mimi namtegea sana Cheruiyot. Kuja tuambie ukweli. Did they actually inherit empty coffers? Na hii pesa wana spend.
Wewe uamini ni kama wali inherit empty coffers?
I don't think so. Because then why are they spending all these billions? Look at the office of the president. Kwanza president, hahitaji rent, hahitaji workers, they are there, the public service. So nyumba ni ya bure, tumemlipia. Hata toilet paper tunamlia. Hakuna kitu rahisi. In fact, the president of the Republic of Kenya and even the deputy has no capacity to spend their salary. Actually, they should be earning what we call peppercorn salary.
What is
maybe even a shilling.
One bob.
Because everything else is paid for. And when they retire, we still take care of them for the rest of their lives.
So they should not be earning a salary.
They should be. I mean, okay, they can earn salary, but something reasonable. Yeah? So that, we need to see some austerity measures. In fact, if I compare, for example, the so-called Prime Cabinet Secretary and the former Prime Minister of the Republic of Kenya, Raila Amolo Odinga. Amolo Odinga's position was created under the National Coalition Act of 2008 as a prime minister. But I do not recall, I could be wrong, I do not recall an office of the spouse of the prime minister being created, even though it was an act of parliament that actually created that office. Okay. But today, Amir, we are dealing with actually almost 5 expenses that are not worth Kenyans. Office of the president is a huge expense on Kenyans. Office of the first lady, another huge expense on Kenyans. Office of the deputy president, another expense on Kenyans. Office of the spouse of the deputy president. Then I think there's now office of the spouse of the
prime cabinet.
Prime cabinet. But I think now there's also another 6 office. Office of the first daughter. Because I never knew about Charlene until Ruto became president.
Lakini Ekuru uone kama unachomanga sana za zingine. Kutoka kwa umeona hiyo ofisi kweli.
But you know the good thing about the tackle, we tackle issues.
Aya, anyway, sasa ruhusu Bishop unaweza kuomba sasa. Sasa ruhusu Bishop apeleke wananchi mbele ya Mungu kwa sababu naona vile unaanza you're not going very well. Aya,
I'm on a roll just like all Kenyans are.
Aya, Dombe, mighty Father, I come before you this morning. You worship you, glorify your name. Thank you for another opportunity to be alive. I thank you for this program. I thank you for every tackler. We thank you for the guest. And as we start off, maybe with us, and may this conversation edify the fabric of this country. For you pray, trusting and believing. Amen. Hata walio na dhambi, mimi kama bishop pia inafaa na waombea. Najua kila mtu ako na nafasi ya kuweza kugeuza mambo. Yes. Haya. Good morning, Brian. Good morning, Gerald Bitok. Good morning to you, John. Good to see you, Joan. How are you? I'm going to be updated. It's 10 p.m. up of Vancouver, Canada. Keep going, Gerald. Thank you so much, Joan. Joan, good to see you so much, and every other person who is coming in from diaspora. Watu wa Canada, ambao wanakaa usiku wa manane kuweza watch the tackle. Thank you so much for always tuning in. It was a pleasure to have you. And today we are actually adding another audience. The audience on Twitter will be coming live shortly as well on Twitter. So we're having new audience. We want to welcome people ambao wako Twitter pale. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Those are the new audience that you welcoming. Karibuni sana to the tackle to other guys from Twitter. I think we should be coming live shortly there. YouTube, mambo vipi? Asante sana watu wa YouTube. Facebook naona Kiplimo Joshua, good morning. Good morning to Yama Jackie. Good morning Gerald. Good morning Keipati. Good morning Sena wako. Good morning Bitok. Leo niko ndani ya nyumba, salimia panelists. Asante. Patrick, the solution is our leaders and the wananchi. It's becoming messy and noisy in the economy. Let the leaders engage in dialogue on the way forward to revive the economic transformation. Everything is becoming expensive. High taxation and bail going for 5K plus of mitumba. Increment of about 60 bob for every kilo. Even unga is going for 300. Where are we heading? The mzigo of wananchi is becoming heavier. Our country economy is going for a shutdown. Collins Gibet live from Washington State. Gerald pongezi kwa kazi. Asante sana Collins Gibet. Good to see you. Thank you for always supporting us. You've been with us for a very long time. May God bless you. Tutakuja. By the way, you are supposed to go to America. Now that COVID ilienda. Lakini wewe unalimanga serikali ya Amerika. Utapata visa?
Sasa tulime serikali ya Amerika. We are just telling Americans to keep their issues around hiyo mambo hiyo kanisa wako nayo to themselves, because hata sisi tuko na value system yetu kama Afrika. Nikwambia tu ukweli.
Unaambia hiyo kanisa yao weke
hiyo kanisa yao wakae nayo. Sisi wachana na sisi.
Hiyo ndio kweli tu tunasema.
Yes.
Aya, otherwise ndio hiyo tutajaribu kwamba hiyo. Ni Paul acha tuone nani hapa. Okay, Manuko, good morning, watching live from Doha, Qatar. Qatar, mambo vipi? Thank you so much for joining us. Daniel Korir, good morning. Bito, good morning to you. Princess Kemuto Tina, my first time to be here. Wacha nione people who are partisan. Wow, Princess, karibu sana. Makofi. Hiyo ni mgeni, makofi ya Kano.
Princess Kemunto.
Kemunto. Wairire. Karibu sana. Paul Cheruiyot, good morning, salimia waheshimiwa. Asante Onesmus Samoei, morning Bishop. Good morning to you. Nasifiwe sana. Collins KK, Raila is telling Kenyans to boycott Safaricom, KPLC, KCB Group and the Star. And after all, we say that he is fighting for Kenyan rights. Which rights are they fighting for? He himself is a stakeholder of gases in Kenya, owning 80% of it, but the price of refueling the gas is 1,400 from 850. Why can't he be an example to the government by reducing the price of goods in these companies? Just good morning, Gerald Bitok and Ekuru. Aukot. Good morning to you, sir. Now, let's start off this conversation even as we're waiting for ML. Now, mambo ya punguza mzigo. Nasikia Wakenya wanasema kwamba mzigo imekuwa juu kidogo. Wanasema wanataka kupunguziwa mzigo. Hiyo ni ya kwanza. The second one is issues of boycotts. Because we are the situation where you're talking about that the economy is doing badly. That's what we are saying. The economy is doing badly. Now, what builds an economy? What builds an economy is business. People trade. When you do your business, when you do your law firm business, when ukisil ka deal, kuna kapesa unapewa serikali. Mimi nikikuja hapa nipiga hapa kidogo nikipata advertisement, kuna kapesa wanaendanga nayo. Sijui withholding tax, sijui nini, mambo mingi. Sarakasi mingi ambayo yana pesa. If I close this place today, government has lost money. If you close your farm, government has lost money. So when you call upon citizens to boycott products from companies, that we're talking about a bad economy. How are we able? Is it sustainable? Is it a sustainable solution to building back the economy? Are you actually giving a proper solution to the state that you are complaining about? Ni kama useme mguu moja iko na shida Na kuliko badala ya kutibu hiyo mguu moja unasema unakata hiyo nyingine. Does it work? Kwanza napunguza mzigo. Then of course we talk about the boycotts.
Before we go,
yes.
I want us to revisit Collins KK's comment where he's saying that Raila is telling Kenyans to boycott Safaricom PLC, KCB Group, and the Star. One, I don't know about the Star. It's a media house, but still.
Actually, the bone of contention, how the boycott on it would be very interesting actually to see why Raila Odinga called for the boycott of a Star. Let me get it for you. This is how it happened. This is why and how we got here.
And by this, Raila's telephone number is actually Safaricom, Yes.
Hajatoka Safaricom? Nifuria amesema tu.
Hata tunaweza kumpigia saa hizi tuone kama atajibu. Isa Safaricom number.
Hebu jaribu kumpigia.
We can call him. We call Jacob.
Pigia Jacob.
It's a Safaricom number. Raila Amolo Odinga. Can mpigie 0721. Okay, I will not say. Let me not share his number publicly. But his number is Safaricom.
Sipeana namba ya Jacob serikali. Amezima. Ameenda kweli. Imeenda.
No, it's not reachable.
Yes, ametupa line.
Hajatupa.
Ametupa line huko.
That's his number.
Okay.
That's Jacob's number.
So this is why I've sent you why we are boycotting the Star. And it's a report on Raila demo aftermath by the Star. And they're saying it's passed by the police reports. And they're saying 213 people arrested in Monday's protest. Okay, according to police. 31 police officers injured in chaos. 10 police vehicles damaged. 1 Maseno University student killed.
So
that is why.
But I know Raila is trying to is trying to hide the truth. But the truth for the matter is, Bitok, we all watched those demonstrations, including in Raila's own bedroom, a place called Kondele in Kisumu. And we saw the violence. We saw the burning of 2 vehicles in a UDA office. That UDA office probably belongs to a Luo investor. I don't know. I mean, one of it could be somebody from his backyard. But we've seen the violence. And let's also compare our own so-called peaceful demonstrations with what was happening in South Africa, because I believe they were all choreographed.
Yeah, South Africa ilikuwa sherehe.
Sherehe. People, it was a carnival.
Ukisikia umeboeka tu na.
Yeah, it was a carnival. People were just dancing, chanting, Ramaphosa must go. But here we are saying Ruto must go, but we are uprooting rails, we are uprooting I don't know what. So there is violence. And like you rightfully said, how can we develop this economy when we are disrupting businesses? In fact, a responsible leader, in my view, will decide to hold that rally away from business premises. For example, when you say let's disrupt a boycott Safaricom PLC, from M-Pesa transactions, I don't know whether you know this, Bitok, but we transact about 25 billion every day.
Wow, 25 billion via M-Pesa.
Via M-Pesa. Okay. So that's a whole economy on its own. And so when you disrupt that, many people say, I cannot risk. Even if you say, open your shops, why will anybody open the shop when the character and nature of some of these demonstrators is violence? KCB is one of our biggest banks. I mean, actually, it's the biggest bank, I think, in Kenya, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, and it's doing very well in the region. KCB is big in South Sudan. KCB is big in DRC Congo. KCB is big in Uganda. So it's actually generating a serious economy for the country. And we are not told the reasons why we must boycott these corporates. Because these corporates generate a lot of revenue for the country. So, one of the things that I learned way back as a young lawyer in what we call administrative law, constitutional administrative law, is that whenever you make any policy decision as a leader, you must account for your decision, or you must explain yourself. So what I was hoping to hear from the Azimio people is, why should we boycott Safaricom? Why should we boycott KCB? Why should we boycott the Star? And I can see the same language. I mean, Uhuru at some point said, gazeti ni ya kufunga nyama. So same lingua. So I see a lot of irresponsible leadership. Yeah. And one of the things that I would have wished to see from the Azimio group is the various avenues they want to use. And I don't know why Cheruiyot is late. You see, Azimio as a leadership in parliament, both in the National Assembly and in the Senate. I have not seen a single motion presented by Azimio, either in the Senate or National Assembly, to actually challenge the actions of government. For example, on the question of chief administrative secretaries, which for me, I don't think we need them, because I still believe they are very unconstitutional. There was choreography in trying to create 23 offices, but I see President William Ruto has appointed 50, which is outside the constitutional mandate, or even outside the law that they sought. So the truth for the matter is, Bitok, mizigo inazidi kuongezeka kwa Wakenya.
Lakini sasa kwa nini wewe na sababu yako pia punguza mzigo? Kwa sababu Kenya is now talking about solutions, and that's what I wanted us to focus on this morning. I mean, every other part of leadership and political sphere and scope, everyone is complaining about the way things are. If I'm not complaining about you, you're complaining about me, or complaining about the other person. Seems like it's a game of throwing blame around. Now, when you speak about solutions, for instance, on the cost of living, as you've rightfully mentioned, and every other burden that is on Kenyans, including government expenditure and debt, for instance, is on us. Now, the solution, you came up with a bright concept of punguza mzigo. Are we now finally going to have a conversation around solutions and initiatives around solutions, and what's the way forward?
You see, for example, it's just that people politicize punguza mzigo. The status quo thought that we are actually kicking them out of the mainstream of dialoguing on issues. Punguza mzigo, if up to now, people are asking me, please bring it back. Because one of the things that we are addressing at Punguza Mizigo is the cost of governance in this country. We are looking at the value of representation. We are looking at how much money is going out there to paying individuals as opposed to service delivery to the people of Kenya. We came up with the idea of the Ward Development Fund. And the Ward Development Fund was going to begin to equalize this country so that it did not matter where you come from in this country. So long as you are receiving services at your very ward level, the smallest unit of representation in this country, we're going to equalize Kenya. Okay. Whether you're in Mandera, Turkana, or Moiben, or Nandi, or wherever, Siaya, Migingo, services is what Kenyans want. Okay. And that was the whole essence of devolution. So we were borrowing cue from Article 6 of the Constitution of Kenya that was saying that every national organ must devolve its services to the people of Kenya everywhere within the Republic of Kenya. Okay. And that was the idea of Punguza Mizigo. Punguza Mizigo was reduce the cost of governance, redirect resources to the people, offer them services, if it is security, if it is health, education, and all that. And that way we can equalize Kenya. And in fact, we were preparing Kenyans to have a robust debate as to whether we even need 47 counties in Kenya to begin with. On whether we actually need 416 elected representatives in Kenya. Because what is the value of representation today? Today, you look at parliament, it's Sokojinga. It's like being in a
market.
Gikomba, in a market, everybody is shouting left, center, and right. We can't even track the contribution of individual members of parliament today. And I'm really hoping that Harun Cheruiyot will come here and tell us exactly what really is the value of representation today. In the Senate, in the National Assembly. You don't see it because members of parliament have ceased to do three things, which are cardinal to representation. First, to represent the constituencies they come from, as in bring motions about what are the issues that are affecting your people. And that leads to the next point, which is to hold government accountable. That I come from constituency X. My people have insecurity issues. My people have got health issues, education issues. What is government doing? And then, of course, to oversight. the actions of government. We don't see that anymore. We see that all they are looking for is photo opportunities with the President of the Republic of Kenya, post it on Twitter, handshake, kuvalisho makofia, and the rest of that. I mean, Kenyans don't want to eat that. So, Punguza Mizigo was a raft of many measures that actually were going to be very beneficial to the people of Kenya, including the value of commissions. We looked at chapter 15. Why do we have commissions where we must insist there must be either be 9 or 7, regional balancing and all that? These are just salaries to individuals. I have chaired Bitok, a university council, Cheruiyot,
yes,
for 3 years. And I was doing it part-time, and I was even working out of the country at that time. I'll fly in, host my meeting, hold my council meeting, and go back to my job. Even commissions today really must be part-time. Board of parastatals are part-time. Board of banks are part-time. So why must we have commissions that are permanent? We looked at all that cost. And one of the things that we did at Punguza Mizigo, and I really want to challenge Kenyans to go back, look at that document. We are not saying it was perfect or we are perfect ourselves. I mean, we did a costing. We costed what we are going to save as a country. For example, from just punishing thieves of public money. Because one of the things that we did at Punguza Mizigo was to disassociate ourselves with the word corruption.
You call it theft?
It is theft. Bitok. If today you're given money, you say that you're going to build a hospital or a school, and you cannot account for that hospital or school, where have you taken that money? You've basically stolen that money, or you have diverted that money. So you're a thief. So, and we costed what we will save by severely punishing, corrupt leaders or thieves of public money. And we are saving trillions. Actually, we are saving more than what is the budget of Kenya today in just 5 years. Yeah.
All right. So, are we likely to see Punguza Mizigo coming back?
There's a lot of calls for us to bring it back, and I do strongly believe it's a timely discussion. I think it's still very much needed in this country. We must bring back Punguza Mizigo, and I hope this time round, it should not just be about Ekuru Aukot and his team at Third Way Alliance that are promoting it. It should be every Kenyan now. You must now hold your MCA, your MP accountable and tell them you must pass that bill, because that bill is saving us a lot of money. It's equalizing this country. And we were actually headed towards building a nation state, not the conglomeration of ethnic identities that we are today in Kenya. Because as you can see, because of that ethnic conglomeration in forming government, that's why people like Rigathi Gachagua will say, serikali ni kampuni. Some people have got shares. So the rest of us are what? And that's why you can see, for example, there's a lot of rewarding. People are now doing the mathematics. Why is there dominance of Kalenjins and Kikuyus in the government, in the KK administration? Because that's a fact. Yet Article 130 of the Constitution talks about informing the national executive, which is the cabinet. You must have regional and ethnic representation of the people of Kenya. It's called regional and ethnic. And when we were doing the 2010 Constitution, we came up with a maximum of 22 ministries. Some of our thinking was very simple, Bitok. We really hoped that a president of the Republic of Kenya will not see himself as being as a captive of his political party or of the regions that supported him. He will now become a father figure to the nation of Kenya. During politics, yes, there is partisanship. This region, sijui watu wa Mlima, sijui watu wa Rift Valley, Bonde la Ufa, whatever, coast, whatever. That altercation politically, I mean, to use the word politely, that altercation will always be there politically. But the moment you have now formed the government under your administration, it is the government of the people of Kenya, not the government of UDA or ODM or Jubilee or whatever the case may be, or not the government of Third Way Alliance Kenya. So the principle in Article 130 was that, for example, I mean, if I was in charge of Kenya today, I will follow the Constitution, both the letter and the spirit. And the spirit is this: make a government representative. Okay? There is nothing wrong with picking 22 cabinet secretaries from 22 different tribes in Kenya. Then in the next batch, the 22 cabinet secretaries who represent, for example, say, the 22 ethnic groups. Now you can pick principal secretaries from another group of 22 other. Yeah? And that way you will have a face of Kenya.
Okay. So it's viable.
So that if 44, and that way you actually will be uniting Kenyans.
Right.
Yeah. So because today one of the criticism under Ruto administration is that it's a Kalenjin affair, it's a Kikuyu affair, and Gachagua himself, who is the principal assistant to the president, has said it. We are rewarding. Kazi yake ni kuangalia nani ampanga line State House. Tukiona mtu ambaye hakuchangia kura
But then, do you think politics is an investment? Because there are people who have invested in this, in a political discourse. Even if it were you, if I was opposing you, if you have run for president before, you've had people who have opposed your bid. Are those people that you would want into your government because they don't believe in your ideology, they don't believe in your manifesto?
Political differences are always there anywhere in the world. But when it comes to forming a government of a state, that government must be unitary, regardless of who voted for you or who supported you. So the government must provide services to each and every Kenyan. And for example, and that's why one of the reasons why for me, even though I don't necessarily believe in 47 counties, but the counties became an avenue via which resources and development can reach to the people. When we did Punguza Mizigo, we realized that yes, you send money to the counties. But if, for example, a member of a county assembly is not in good terms with the governor, that ward and the people in that ward are discriminated. That's why we came up with the idea, let's have now a ward development fund. And we were preparing Kenyans for a debate where they can even ask the question, do we now really need 47 counties? As a matter of fact, I think we probably need 4 counties. But
4 counties only?
4 counties. I can call it north, south, west, and east. Okay? But we strengthen the idea of wards as units of service delivery. When I was a student in England many years back, I did not even know who the member of parliament from the region where I come from, where I was studying. But I knew about the local authority. And the local authority was focused on a few things. Transport. Are buses on time? Trains, are they on time? Garbage collection. Yeah. Power was not even an issue. Trains, are they on time and all that? People were concerned about basic things. Jobs. So you had in every small, city or town, you will have a labor office. Okay? Those are the basic things that we are concerned with. But in Kenya here, we are so obsessed with, counties, constituencies, presidency. But at the end of the day, if you break it down to you, wherever you are, your village may be, it's about service delivery to the people. That's period. And I'm happy that Aaron Cheruiyot, leader of majority, is here.
Good morning.
Yeah.
Good morning, Gerald. Good morning, Bwana Party Leader, Third Way Alliance.
Pandisha juu kiti kidogo mheshimiwa.
Kama senator. Unajua time is money.
Yeah.
I don't know why you're not talking to Kenyans. Or Kenyans wanted to hear you from as early as 7:30.
I was told to be here at 8:15. So I was here at 8:15.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Good to see you, mheshimiwa. Good morning.
So Bitok is here. And mheshimiwa here probably will explain to us what they are doing about safeguarding devolution, for example. Like I said, and I'll repeat it, I don't personally believe in 47 counties. But until we take services to the people at the very ward level, then we still need the 47 counties as units, as conveyor belts for resources to the counties and to the people. But we also now know, as a matter of fact, and that's why when we brought in Punguza Mizigo, that the wards, depending on the political persuasion, or an MCA depending on his political persuasion, will be relegated by the governor. And that's why we came up with the idea of World Development Fund. In fact, I was excited when I had UDA talk about bottom-up approach, but now we know that bottom-up approach is no longer a conversation on the table.
Is it true?
Arun Cheruiyot will tell us, because I don't hear that anymore. I don't hear about border. I don't hear about Mama Boga anymore. So the bottom has been neglected, but now we are seeing the top. We are seeing the top, their spouses, their whatever, the budgets, we don't hear about a budget being increased for the bottom, but for the top we can see.
Good morning, Mheshimiwa.
Good morning, Gerald.
Umepata kama makombora tayari zimeshaanza kutembea.
Hiyo ndio kazi yetu. That's what we live for. So
good to see you.
I am more than ready to remind Ekuru Court that every single transformative agenda that we promised in the plan is on course. The only challenge we have, of course, is the time that it will take to turn things around. We knew there was a mess, but in all honesty, we underestimated how badly governed this country was, how deep down in the hole we were. For all intents and purposes, many of the things that perhaps we would have used to measure and know what was the state of the country then were not properly revealed. And now, finally, when you walk in and you look at what you have, you're like, oh my goodness, this is a shell. There is no country here. It's like you're rebuilding actually all over again from 1963. And this is very much true in every sector, from health, agriculture, financial sector, empowerment programs, all these things. So it takes time. It's not that easy, because the truth of the matter is that we are extremely broke, and given the not so good financial environment, first locally, and also you add on to the fact that there is a global recession on the roll, then you find yourself with the conditions of what you describe as a perfect storm. So what have we done about it? We have laid down the plans. Remember, part of what we promised and part of what accounts for the biggest trouble that we have as a country is debt, because the truth of the matter is that we live beyond our means. If you explain it in a simple way, a language that Kenyans understand, it's like Kenya is like a young 25-year-old fresh out of university, has gotten their job, they're earning 50,000, but instead of starting doing the common thing that everybody else does, you go to maybe a place like Umoja, where you pay rent 15,000, and then you'll use maybe about another 10,000 for bus fare, save for food another 10,000, then have savings of 5,000. We did the reverse. We went to Kileleshwa, hired an apartment for 100,000. Then we talked to a friend of ours who owns a car bazaar and told him, please give me the latest BMW. So basically, by the end of the month, you realize that you earn 50,000, but your lifestyle is 250. So month on month, you're living way beyond your means. That's how we drove Kenya for the last few years. And therefore, the most difficult thing to do is to first get us even to a point where we stop this, what we call the fiscal deficit. Unfortunately, you can't say complete total stop. You have to, without shutting the country and denying the country critical services. Like if you wanted to say absolutely no borrowing at all, no funding of anything outside what you're raising at revenue, it means you may not even be able to pay civil servants. You'll not pay the teachers, you'll not pay police, you'll not pay everything. So what do? You cut down on what you consider to be unnecessary spending. But then even as we do that, you realize there's a deeper problem. You go to sector by sector, you realize there are commitments that have already been made over 5-10 years. You pick a sector, say like roads and transport, you find that there are commitments of over 900 billion Kenya shillings signed. All complete, you're a lawyer, you know this, with the default clauses that have got very punitive interest if you try and cancel. So what do? You have to call people to the table and negotiate and say, okay, we know you have a contract. First of all, it's highly exaggerated. You find cost even for an earth road going up to as high as 40 million per kilometer, and people procured, and it's on the table. A conversation has to be had. What do we do with such contracts? And this is something that we are cracking our heads, because some of these things have got to come to Parliament, and the people of Kenya then have to make a decision and say, do we just go ahead and pay because people committed? you know there are repercussions, because unfortunately, if you cancel, some of them are externally funded. So it has a ripple effect also on our fundraising for future prospects, because then it reduces our ratings, because it means that Kenya is not a country governed by rule of law that you can have a contract, but when administrations change, the new administration will come and cancel things. So it's a very delicate exercise that is being done, which unfortunately my friend Aukot cannot be turned around in about maybe 3 to 6 months that we've been in office. You have to set the fundamentals first. The truth of the matter, any person who's genuine and open in their criticism at this point will only send out the alarm bells and say, how comes I'm not seeing this? How comes I'm not seeing? And you'll get an explanation of almost everything. But to say there has been failure, unless you're just an outright hater who doesn't like our political opponents, who we don't expect, I mean, it's natural. We don't expect them to appreciate or praise us. But where Kenya is at the moment, we are at the point where very difficult decisions have to be made, like what I've just explained. I just pick one particular sector and said, if we decide to cancel on this, then we'll find ourselves in the situation where we are in, like with the airport project, the Greenfield project, where we are now in Paris trying to arbitrate, and the contractor is claiming 17 billion for no work done. And unfortunately, if you want to continue having the kind of ratings that Kenya has globally, and people to continue to invest in this country, these are global organizations. These are treaties that we are signed onto, which unfortunately we can't.
Senator, not to interject. First of all, I think you need to be very truthful to Kenyans. One, the current administration under William Ruto is not new in government.
That's true.
William Ruto was the deputy president for 10 years.
That's true.
Previously, before that, he was the minister of this, agriculture, education, and all that. So it's not new. And when you guys came up with your plan, you knew exactly then what needs to be fixed in this country. And I think we need you to address that to the tacklers. That the fact that you're not new, but now you're creating excuses. And secondly, Bwana Senator, when you are campaigning, some of us truthfully believed you actually had a plan, and because we were not, we made conscious decision, for example, to support KK and to vote in KK administration at that time, because we knew you actually had a plan. You were in government, so you know exactly what was wrong. And thirdly, Mr. Senator, I know there is no country in the world that doesn't have a debt. Maybe Singapore or Norway, if I'm not wrong, few of those countries. But why are you not talking about renegotiating these, loans? Because you see, the problem is that people borrowed this money recklessly. And that takes me to my next point. So for you, you now need to be able to renegotiate these loans, with whoever the lender is. And I think that is something that you can easily do, because there's nobody who will not want to do business with government going forward. And lastly, Senator, you need to tell us honestly, if you know that there are people who exaggerated these loans, that they borrowed, this money recklessly, what have you done as a government? Because you must take them to account, because there has to be a question of accountability. As you very well know that from our constitution, Article 10 speaks about accountability. Yes, so we cannot keep on excusing people who are putting us into the deepest hole, and then just saying, we know this is what we are. But you are not coming out to explain to the people of Kenya. And for me, I would have wished, for example, for William Samoei Ruto, President Ruto, to say that this is what we inherited, and this is what the problem is, so that Kenyans understand actually what you guys are grappling with. Accountability is a bit camouflaged here. But lastly, Senator, you keep on telling us, like your deputy president, or our deputy president, keep on saying that we inherited empty coffers. But look at some of the expenses you guys are undergoing. The other day, I don't know how true it is, we've seen the budget of the office of the president skyrocket, deputy president, and I'm not even counting about their spouses, the offices of their spouses. You are creating an office G of the spouse of the prime cabinet secretary. Even under Raila, even to be fair to Raila, during the National Coalition Act, the office of the prime minister was created under the law. But I don't remember, I don't recall, I could be wrong, that Haida Odinga had an office funded by, So one of the things I think maybe you guys are not being told, because as we are listening to this on the ground, people are saying, but these people are saying we don't have money. But look at these expenses, from their own offices. The other day, is it yesterday? We saw the motor vehicles, the president, motor vehicles, deputy.
Business daily.
Business daily. Kenyans can't reconcile that with a government that says we are broke. I think you need to explain this to Kenyans.
I think that needs to come out very clear.
Yes.
Because on the background of your confessions, that first of all, the government that just left was living beyond its means, and there are debts and all that. The Kenyans are also asking the same thing. Are you living out of your means?
No. There's nothing could be further from the truth. So let me break it down for my friend Ekuru so that he doesn't feel like we are creating excuses. Ekuru, you also must be willing to listen and appreciate what I'm saying. Because when I tell you that we are laying the fundamentals, remember, we are 6 months in office. So when I explain to you what is being done and the situation as is, it's not that I'm laying an excuse. I've told you, we are conscious of where we are as a society. That's why we made a conscious decision and said, we have to come up with a plan. Part of the plan includes getting us out of the mess that we currently are in. And this has to do with the food situation and various things that are making the cost of living go high and above the reach of ordinary citizens. So when I take time to explain, I want you also to appreciate that the explanation that I'm giving is to paint for you a picture of where we are as a country. Then secondly, what is it that you are doing to ensure that in the future, we never find ourselves in this kind of situation where people are buying unga for 200 or 300 Kenya shillings, as was the case previously, and people are paying, I don't know how much for fuel and all these things, or we find a situation where we are buying the dollar at 150, as is the case now. So that's a reality. When I paint the picture as is, it's not excuse making. Unfortunately, I wish I could paint a more rosy picture, but that's where we find ourselves. I hear you when you say William Ruto has been in government, he's not a stranger. It's a plus and a negative. It's a plus in the sense that he understands what has happened, the situation that we find ourselves in. But remember, many of these things that we are grappling with and dealing with were actually solidified more in the days when we crushed all institutions of oversight on government, from parliament to agencies of investigation, and that happened during the dark days of a handshake. So you will understand very well how big or small his influence was during those days. Many of us spoke about these things. When the debt ceiling came to parliament, many, myself included, I voted against it on both occasions and said, I don't see a credible plan. It's not a bad thing to borrow. I'd support, but I'd wish a more solid plan. When we asked, for example, for the debt register to be brought, part of my submissions I made, and the Hansard would bear me witness, I asked then Cabinet Secretary Cheruiyot that, okay, I hear you. You say you want us to raise the debt ceiling for you so that you can retire, just like you're saying, some of these expensive commercial loans that we've taken, and perhaps just keep on our books the sovereign borrowings that we are paying 1%, 2%, 3%. At least those ones will be sustainable and gives us a longer period. But where is the evidence? Because mark you, if you went and asked the National Treasury today for a debt register, you'll only be presented with an Excel sheet which doesn't even tally up. So, and when we became firm and hard about it, we were taken around in circles. But remember what Parliament was back then. So now in this BPS of this financial year, because that's part of what now, because I hear your question of what are you doing about these things? Part of the recommendations that we passed in the Senate, because we told them we need first of all to move over this thing. It doesn't make sense, and there are two schools of thought about debt sustainability, whether you want it to have as a percentage of your GDP or just anchored as a figure, like is the case right now, where it's at 10 trillion, and we're already somewhere at 9.8, 9.7. I mean, we're about to break it. The more practice which I see other countries that are our contemporaries, almost our equal in terms of economy, they do it as an anchor to your GDP. So maybe 50, 55 or 60%. Anyway, 55 and below will be a good practice. That's what many countries that are our peers are doing. The second recommendation that we passed, and we said, for every borrowing and debt that will be coming henceforth, the minister must first furnish Parliament, for Parliament to grant the approval of what the intended purpose of that borrowing is. Unlike in the past where you'll just hear, give me 10 trillion, you'll never hear about it until they bust that ceiling, they come back again. So at least in the future, from now henceforth, you can be sure that there will never be that issue of reckless borrowing anymore. And that's a good plus on. Going back to the earlier things that you had asked about renegotiation, it's some of these things are, I know for a fact, it's not in my space to speak about it because it's a conversation that's going on between countries, but I know that there are conversations going on between our presidency and the presidency of the countries that we owe the most, which includes China and 2 or 3 other countries. And I know there have been plans to have, because this is a decision that can only be made at presidential level, not any level before. And there have been such requests, but you have to wait. You know, like the Bible says, the borrower is slave to the lender. So even if you make a request and say, I want to come and talk, it's until your master says, okay, come, I want to hear you. So much as that remains to be an option, it's still not open yet. That request has been made.
Senator, to give us comfort, so that we know you're doing something.
Yeah.
You've talked about reckless borrowing.
Yeah.
Who is this who recklessly borrowed? Because that's what the people of Kenya will want to know, Bitok, Senator Cheruiyot.
There will be, I can assure you, because I was going actually to come to the fourth question, that Article 10, issues of governance. If there are people who committed us to debt, that needless borrowing, and they put the country in the kind of situation where for every 100 shillings that you are collecting, we are paying almost 70 to 80 just to repay other people. What is it that needs to be done? Remember, we gave the promise to the people of Kenya that there shall be a state capture commission, which will will enable Kenyans to come and speak out so that people understand how did we find ourselves in this situation where we have 10 trillion on our books, but when you go and try and look for the actual projects that were done actually to warrant this level of borrowing, there's very little to show for it. I can assure you that once we settle in the current political dust, understand also the situation where we are in. If today I went to Senate and moved such a motion, what is the likely thing that people will say? And I suspect people, even educated ones like you, they'll say, oh, this is just politics. You're trying to hit out at the former president and perhaps the former prime minister. So until you have first a reckoning of, we must first put the elections behind us, and now government begins work. Unfortunately, Senator, that is not coming. Senator, you have to carry the country with you.
Let him finish.
Facts. We cannot run away from. Let me even just take you back memory lane. Goldenberg, we know we lost about 5-point-something billion.
Yeah.
NYS, a stock of 2 billion, I think 9 billion or whatever.
Figure is not.
And there are people who are then in charge of that, of those dockets. I think for me, what you can do as now the administration of the day, is say some of these figures, it's documented by the Auditor General. So it's not, you're not lying to people. You're not saying, that does not have to wait for political dust to settle. These are facts. You look at the Auditor General report today, every county in this country is a thief in equal measure. Every county.
Oh, county, okay.
Every county, including national government departments. The auditor has actually, documented this. So I think for you to really even gives hope to Kenyans is that you say you don't even need to enchant anyone because.
But don't get me wrong. It's not when I say that political climate has to be right. Is for other subsidiary things to be done. But it's not to say that every agency of investigation has put its work. I can assure you that people are recording statements even silently. Some of them you will never hear about it. Because part of what we gave as a promise to the people of Kenya is that we will stop this dramatization of graft and prosecuting people. Is part of how you get it wrong, because you give them a reason to have a political excuse. But there are people who are silently getting messages. Are you aware, for example, even just the latest one, like the Telkom haste? There's a parliamentary committee that's continuing with the investigation. I think yesterday the board chair of Telkom was before that committee. former cabinet secretaries will appear before it. So the nuts are slowly rolling in. The thing that I have to explain to you is that if it's rushed also and became too sudden and too soon, then everybody will think that this is just political play that we're getting about. Remember, in the 6 months that we have been in office, that is not sufficient time to say that finally you have a watertight case. Some of these people are extremely well connected. They didn't just pick and deposited it directly to their bank accounts. Part of what you're getting is that some of this money was taken actually in hard cash. You know, so you've got to trace and find out. Asset recovery has got to give you the opportunity, come with your lawyers, give the explanation. The truth of the matter is, eventually, we will catch up with these people, because that's the assurance that you want to get, that all these people that were committing this kind of economic crimes, borrowing and doing phantom projects, I don't know, Huduma number 26 billion down the line, there's nothing to record for it. Eventually, we will catch up with them, because as a parliamentarian and as a legislator, I will have failed on my duties of oversight if I know for a fact that we are struggling, and I can see the kind of shoestring budget we have to live on and just give counties barely enough to survive, you know, because of debt, yet that debt wasn't used prudently. So I give Kenyans the assurance that in the next perhaps few months that are slightly ahead of us, then the real picture will begin to come out. And when the documents now, every document has been bought, you've been told now, come and explain to us how you ended up procuring this project, what you paid for it, who did this, who did what. I'm sure we'll have a solid case then, and people will, there will be, Kenyans will get value for their money. Of course, you had asked about this issue that people speak about it. I mean, honestly, Ekuru, unless you're being just cheeky, you want to tell me that you're seated here believing that there was taxpayers' money used to set up the office of spouse to the prime cabinet secretary? You honestly believe it?
Yes, I do.
Why?
I do because...
Honestly, no. It's a rhetorical question.
So
you don't have to answer. No, I have to answer. No, you don't have to. Because you had your time. And I'll be senator. When you have your time, you will answer. Honestly, I mean, you've worked in... I don't know so much about your history, whether you've worked in government before or not. But you want to tell me somebody sat down, did a budget line and approved and said, oh, we need to create such and such an office? Honestly, it's only Public Service Commission that can create office. And you know how offices are created. If somebody wants to run a charitable wing because they're the spouse of a prime cabinet secretary, I'm sure they'll find the resources to run it. It's something that people do globally. So please, Kenyans, and also people like you, also question some of these things. Don't just be quick to run with things online and say, hey, this and that is being done. Don't give us the benefit of a little doubt. We are not that stupid to get to the point that the first thing when you get to government is to spend 50 million to create some budget line for the spouse of so and so. Some of these things are just stories that people spin online for the sake of it, to pass boredom and because times are hard. These are narratives that are famed and weaved. Of course, I hear you when you say the budget for the presidency has increased in the last few months. I would be glad and more than willing to furnish. I've asked even somebody yesterday when I saw the story and said, is this true? They said, no. When I saw the story in the Business Daily. And once I get the actual information about what exactly were these funds for, because vehicles for 100 million, that's a lot of vehicles, I know, because I know I've seen the car.
Actually, 431.
It's a very modest car, just a Lexus, which maybe even if it's the latest one, 2022, wouldn't cost anywhere in excess of 25 million, and it's only one. I've seen many of the vehicles which he used to use have since been taken over by his deputy. Some of them he's kept them and he uses them occasionally. So it'll be good to understand, are they talking about him as president, his office, what has warranted this? Are there repairs that are being, are there people that are part and parcel of that package? It will be good to understand. But let's not be, I know, you know the problem with our media, and this is a conversation I began and I didn't see your comments about it. Are you happy with the state of Kenyan media where it is today? That if you read a story from any of our frontal dailies, you have to counter check with another source to be sure and certain that whatever they are saying is actually true and accurate.
I hope when you say media, you've not included us.
No, I don't know how you fact check your guests and the kind of things that you're doing. Look at even the situation. And I like some of the things I agree with you. When we began this conversation, you are a bit on the edge, but I've followed your comments as days goes by. How come people are not calling out the kind of nonsense that Raila is feeding this country into? That once you are done with an election. No, previously you used to want to sit first on the fence. Until now is when you have said, if we have a conversation about the cost of living, I am willing to have a conversation. But you can't tell us the same Article 37 that gives you the right to picket and you know they keep erasing. I think you need to send them fresh copies of the Constitution because they have erased the part that speaks about peaceful, you know, peaceably. According to them, picketing is removing road signs. That's why they can't find their way to State House because already their goons have removed all the road signs. That's why you end up they can't find their way because they end up in Madare.
But now getting into the issues that are at the center of all these conversations that we are having, and it seems even Raila Odinga has moved away from the electoral issues that he was talking about at first when he started these demos. He was saying that the elections were rigged out. Now he has moved on. He's talking about the cost of living, and many Kenyans are having this conversation, and the cost of unga, cost of fuel, cost of everything that moves around a regular Kenyan surviving. And most Kenyans, because we are on the media, we do media every single day, people would call in, they'll say even having 2 meals in a day is a luxury. Now, is that a reality, first of all, that the cost of living is high in Kenya, in your opinion?
Of course it is, but let me ask you a question. Okay. Is he genuine and honest about it? Because to the best of my recollection, last year when him and Uhuru were in charge of the country, Unga was retailing at 240, 250. And he
defended actually.
And he defended that. He came public about it. Yeah. When we, now as we speak, it's 180, 190. It's come down. It hasn't reached where we want it because we want it like really low for all Kenyans to be able to afford at least 2 meals a day as will be expected. But is that really what he's talking about? So if it is about the cost of living, by demonstrating and stopping kids from going to school, injuring others, attacking people who are going about their business, how is that going to bring down the cost of living? For how long are we going to stomach the kind of impunity that Raila is used to and continue to reward him? Because unfortunately, it's because we rewarded Raila in 2007, we rewarded him in 2017, that he feels beholden to take this particular route. And somebody must put a stop to this. That's why I said yesterday that allow us the time to put a finality to this moment so that Raila will never have the opportunity to blackmail the country again and expect to reap political benefits out of it. Because it's a bad habit that he has gotten used to, that you go to an election, you have everything, including all the state agencies, up to the army, you know, supported him. Unfortunately, he lost. Kenyans listened to him. They listened to President Ruto. They said, this guy has no idea where to take us. This is the person that you're giving the support. Instead of accepting defeat, they want to cherry pick a clause of a constitution and say we are allowed to pick it and forget that the same constitution speaks of judicial authority. That when the Supreme Court dispenses off with a matter, that's final. There is nowhere else that you can go and have this conversation about it. So the truth of the matter is that, unfortunately, many people, and that's a part perhaps he lost me, that I was congratulating Ekuru, Aukot, and many other people that have the courage to call out Raila for his hypocrisy. Because if you listen to the things that he's saying, you see a very unhygienic conversation. Even IBC that is complaining about. Remember, the Charera 4, the 4 IBC commissioners were single-handedly picked by Uhuru and Raila using this IBC selection panel that he's now complaining about. In fact, we have made it better because somebody went to court and we are law-abiding citizens. I think it was Okiya Mtata and said if Parliament, PSC, Parliamentary Service Commission, has a chance to nominate 4 out of the 7 members of a selection panel, then you're giving too much power to one institution. So what did we do? We said, okay, fine, we agreed. The court ruled in his favor and said, that's too much. At least arrogate this power to other public institutions. So we came back to Parliament and said, okay, the term of the chair is coming to an end and 2 commissioners, and of course there was this petition against these other 4 commissioners, 3 of whom resigned. So what did we do? We invited public to come and give their views. And when we concluded that exercise, we ended up with a situation where we said, okay, instead of Parliament having 4, and you know what happened when Parliament had 4 slots? Orengo and Pogisio in the Senate Kimunya and John Badi, all batting for Azimio, sat down and gave the 4 names. So the long and short is that Uhuru and Raila nominated 4 out of the 7 commissioners that ran IBC. And of course, they had a purpose and an intent. That's why you ended up with the fiasco at Serena. But when the court spoke and they said that's a dangerous situation, and I agree with the wisdom of the courts that resting powers on one institute, too much power on one institution, even parliament, is risky. We came and we did an amendment. It passed on both houses, National Assembly, Senate. At the end of it, you have 2 members of a selection panel nominated by Parliament. The Public Service Commission, which is a constitutional independent body that takes care of the interests of public service, has 1 nominee. Inter-Religious Council, to represent the religious diversity of his country, nominates 2, just like Parliament. And then political parties, I don't know if your political party participated, but you're members of the, what is it called? The PPLC. You know, political parties liaison committee. They went to Naivasha. They did an election, Gerald, and they picked a single individual nominated to that particular committee. Who's the last one? I'm forgetting one LSK. You're a member of LSK. They gave us also their nominee. Out of those 7, Raila believes that no. Unless I am consulted, I don't agree. So here comes a situation where there's an individual who feels like he's so the country is so beholden to him that nothing legal should ever proceed unless there's something extra legal or extra constitutional. So he didn't have a problem when him and Uhuru sat down to nominate 4 IBC commissioners, but he has a problem right now when LSK, Public Service Commission, Inter-Religious Council, political parties sit down to do the work of IBC. Surely, shouldn't somebody be sitting down this old man and saying...
There's a tackler who has asked me to ask you a question, Senator, and he's saying this. Actually, 2 questions, and maybe we can discuss that another time. That I think you are lying about the office of the spouse of the Prime Cabinet Secretary, but we will hold you to account that when the truth will come.
No, I'm a parliamentarian.
That's okay.
And I'm a honorable citizen. Why would I come to Gerald to lie? Okay. Why should I come to lie? If there was truth to it, I wouldn't hide. So tell him for his comfort,
we will hold you
I am certain of what I'm saying. Yes. Not a single shilling of taxpayers' money was used to create that office.
Fair enough. At the risk of not personalizing it.
Yeah.
Now the second question, Mwesh, is this, and I've been asked to ask you. Under the Retirement Benefits Act, President,
and Deputy
Presidents,
Speakers, and Speakers of Parliament. Yeah.
Is Raila Amolo Odinga retired and is he enjoying retirement benefits?
I need to check, but I know that that's part of the package. That
because the argument they are presenting is that if this man is enjoying retirement benefits, because he's supposed not to practice to be actively politically.
Yes.
And remember, Uhuru reinstated
it's part of the package,
2018, part of the handshake benefits.
Yes.
So why then? What then is your government administration doing about that? Because if a person is enjoying retirement benefits, and it's conditional upon not being actively involved in politics, including the kind of disruption that we are now seeing. Then why isn't your administration?
I need to check that in all honesty, and that tackler is right. That if he continues because of the kind of activities that he's doing, he's disrupting the economy while being driven in a GK vehicle.
And they have also asked, including Kalonzo Musyoka as a former vice president,
yes, of course.
President.
I think on the retirement post 2017, they say they can enjoy the retirement benefits on the prime minister,
of course, and former vice president, because it is incumbent upon them then to behave like retired people. You cannot be disrupting an economy and want to continue benefiting from it while not working, because you know that's what a retirement package is. Exactly. That other Kenyans are working for you to enjoy, yet you're disrupting Kenyans who are going about their business. So
like Sakaja yesterday said, they only collected 50% of what they normally collect daily.
Honestly.
Yeah, so that's economic sabotage.
Yeah. Right.
And why is it that you people cannot bring a motion in the Senate?
Let me ask something. Assuming William Ruto had lost this election, the 2022 election, then he went and organized his troops. They came and disrupted the business of the country. They even further listed certain private businesses and said don't be engaged. Will he still be getting the kind of rosy coverage in the media that Raila continues to enjoy? Will that issue just be reduced to a political contest and sanitized? Yet what Raila is engaged in is political banditry and economic saboteurism. Because the truth of the matter is that if we continue to sanitize this conversation and let it appear just like it's a political contest between two camps, then you're allowing people to do and have, it's like you've given people the license of a harlot to run around town and say, claim anything and say, for whatever reason I can pick it. For all intents and purposes, I have taken time to listen to the kind of things that Azimia are saying. These are the things that are making us sad and go to the street. The unfortunate truth before heaven and earth is that there is not a single reason why they should be complaining about anything. All these things are properly settled by law.
Last week, we were here with Professor Anuchia. And one of the things that we established about the leadership in Kenya, that you lack courage. You are cowards. Because so long as you are comfortable in your leadership role and you're enjoying the perks and benefits of leadership, you will not do the right thing. You're not courageous enough to do the right thing. For example, some of the violence that is being committed from this Azimio, you know, and earlier on before you came, we were comparing the Julius Malema demonstration in South Africa, and we concluded that was like a carnival. It's a celebration, you know, compared to what is happening
happens in Kenya.
But you guys are not courageous enough to hold some of these leaders accountable, regardless of who they are. Even though, I mean, look, President William Ruto and Uhuru did not rape or murder anybody in 2007, 2008.
Yeah.
But from the principle of international criminal law, they were held responsible as the people with the greatest responsibility.
Yeah.
So why are we still not holding even these organizers of Azimia, especially when there is violence being committed, economic sabotage? You are not courageous because you are birds of a feather. Because I will not be surprised today, Senator Aaron, if Raila and Ruto are talking. I will not be surprised.
No.
It could be choreographed. I can tell you for a fact. In 2017, Bitok, by the way, I know Cheruiyot will not admit, but in November 2017, Raila and Uhuru had already struck a deal. So all this thing was just choreography. So even this one, I am very suspicious. You know, here we try to predict sometimes at the tackle. Tunafanya unabii wa siasa hapa. So I will not be surprised.
No. I can assure you
behind the scenes.
I can assure you that there can never be that conversation again, because at some point a leader of courage must arise and face the demons that hold back your country from development. Part of the reason why Kenya is where it is economically, politically, and even as a society, why we are not progressing, is because we abscond our responsibility on upholding the rule of law. If there is something that this president gave a public commitment about, is we shall ensure that at least we fix the rule of law in this country, so that people can know that we have a constitution, we have the laws that are set for all of us to live under them. The unfortunate truth, which you have said here, and I agree with you 100%, is that we have set a scenario where the political class, there are certain rules that we don't conform by. So we go on the roads, other Kenyans are queuing behind the traffic lights, but because I'm a mheshimiwa, I put my hazard and I overlap. That people are supposed to drive on the left, but if there's traffic, I do. So we have allowed a certain class of society. That culture needs to end. It's a culture of impunity. It's bad for this country. And I agree with you that we shall be demanding, and I'll say the same even this afternoon in Parliament. There's a statement that a 0 hour that we have reduced, and part of that we're going to adduce before the Senate on my side of the team that I lead. Part of the demands that we shall be making is that those who applied and said we want to have a peaceful demonstration at least need to come out and be asked tough questions, like you have cited the example in international criminal law, that because you are the head of this political formation and this is what people have done, what do you have to say? We need to hold you accountable. You know, I see even this Article 37 that Azimio wants to cherry pick as if it's only part of a constitution. There are conditions to it. You just can't ask for a broad license and say, I want to peacefully demonstrate in CBD. What is CBD? CBD stands from, I don't know, Westlands all the way to Mlolongo. Do you want the whole place to be left out to you? I thought you give a structured way and say, we shall be in this part, our procession will go to this particular part, so that police provide you cover. How can police provide you cover when, as early as not far from this studio here, at 6 a.m., people are already throwing stones and stopping other Kenyans from going about their duties? If you go to Dono, this Babu Owino had, as late as the night before, had already blocked vehicles from going about their business. So people must be held to account, and I agree with you. That is something that I shall be pushing, because I am a leader in this administration, and say, please, forget even about the petty offenders, much as, you know, with the aid of technology, because many of these people that are uprooting road signs and guardrails and stoning people's businesses have been captured on CCTV. So DCI, I mean, should be telling us right now how far they are with identifying these people, because they are known.
But I think, Senator, if you really want to address that, conclusively, yes, you can go for the petty offenders if you like, but you know the leaders behind this, behind this need, and you know somebody said it jokingly, ati hakuna jela inaweza funga Raila, hakuna police, hakuna sijui nini. So, and I think we
were told something before this election.
You guys are excusing and normalizing criminality because you know the ringleaders. Why don't you go for the ring?
We were told before the 2022 election that, you know, when Uhuru and Raila combine forces, nobody can defeat them politically in this country. That was done. We are now being told that Raila is above the law. Really? Watch this space.
All right, moving on quickly from Raila.
But also, there's a quick comment I want to make. Okay. I think you are the best examples of respecting the rule of law, Senator.
As who now?
As KK administration.
Oh, Kenya Kwanza administration.
Yeah.
Why?
Because one, I'll just give you two examples. Number one, look at the issue of the chief administrative secretaries. Yes, you did a very cosmetic so-called public participation. And you know, the law has actually, the courts have pronounced themselves that public participation has to be meaningful. Yeah. But anyway, PSC sent a memorandum in, you justified 23 position, but you have appointed 50. The administration has appointed 50. Kenyans are asking that question. Actually, some of the tacklers are asking, ask Senator Cheruiyot to actually address that question.
On the CSS.
On the CSS. From 23 to 50. I think it's important to do that.
Okay.
Number two, you have deployed KDF to parts of our northern part of Kenya. You didn't follow the law. You know very well that Chapter 14 on national security has a procedure that you need to go to Parliament, seek approval of Parliament, and then make KDF under the IG. So that they don't do the kind of thing they are doing, bombing, villages and all that. I mean, I'm a nomadic pastoralist. You are a pastoral. We are all pastoralists in this room. And you know, pastoralism is our livelihood. So when you tell people, for example, to move out of your villages, you have not given us any alternative accommodation. You're not telling us. So there you did not follow the law. Although you say you follow the rule of law, you have not followed the law there. And then I can tell you, as a matter of fact, again, you need to answer this question because we discussed it last week. You've not complied with Article 130 on forming the national executive. It talks about that in forming the national executive must have the regional and ethnic representation in Kenya. You have got more Kalenjins in national government, you have more Kikuyus, and then of course you have cherry-picked in some other region. That's not the rule of law. Because that's
propaganda. My friend,
what do you mean?
That's propaganda. Don't buy.
Senator.
On the PA, let's start.
Unajua we are being watched as far as Australia.
Yes. I mean, yes. And you know, if you are guilty, like for example, on count number 2, is something that I have equally told, unfortunately, exercising oversight over the national defense falls in the National Assembly. And I've said this to my friend Nelson, who's the chairperson of the Defense Committee, the National Assembly, that they must demand answers from CS Aden Duale. Because for sure you're right. They should have been a parliamentary process before approval, before sending KDF into that. And I know last week I watched in one of the conversations going on from National Assembly that the entire security apparatus from the military and all these agencies appeared before that committee specifically on that question. I hope at the end of that conversation, and it shouldn't take long, we need to be told how first of all, that happened, and how it can be rectified such that we don't have that situation happening in the future. Out of pressure or whatever, there's no excusing bad behavior. And I have said as much even to Siasa and Duale in person. So when things happen that I consider that are not right, I speak and say of the same. But I'll tell you on the other two counts, you're genuinely wrong. If you go through the list of permanent secretaries, there's a representation of at least a PS from each of the 47 counties. It might not be entirely every county, but they are spread actually one. There's no single county that you can say has more than one permanent secretary. The same can be said of over what are they called? Over cabinet secretaries, 22 of them, spread differently from different parts of Kenya. If you go down even on this one of CASs, it follows the same model. What do people do? Unfortunately, people want to reduce it and be a conversation about there are only two communities that are being rewarded or such like kind of conversation. But it's not true. If you go through the list of the appointments, chances are, and this needs to be done, because yearly, when I was in Parliamentary Service Commission in my last term of Parliament, I used to present before the National Assembly Equal Opportunities Committee a report of the configuration of the numbers of who we have employed and how many are in senior management, how many are in lower cadres and the likes. I know before the end of this financial year, all arms of government will present the same. Let's wait for that report and we will bust that myth for you. It's not true. It's just something you have been socialized about. No, so and you're a consumer of social media a lot, and you begin to believe that hype.
Why then did you request for 23?
Exactly. That's the third. That's the third. I saw something that in the filings that were given in court during the argument for whether due process was followed, and the court found that due process was followed. So you cannot just reduce it and say some cosmetic exercise was done. You know, Ekuru, you must also be a stickler for the rule of law. When the courts,
which I am.
No. You are no different from Raila now on that account.
I'm a teacher of law.
The ones you agree with, you say it's good. The ones that you don't agree with, you say it's cosmetic. I mean, honestly, we had this argument. We went before a court of law with LSK, and the court said, I mean, constitutionally, they followed the law, and that's why it was created. What I gather now is that in the request to PSC, head of public service requested and said, in our consideration, 23 positions will suffice. But during public participation, as citizens gave their views actually on what this cabinet, they're called chief administrative secretaries, needs to be doing, it was realized that 23 couldn't carry out the role of what exactly you want them to do, which is assist, say, the cabinet secretaries in running the various state departments, respond sometimes if there's need to appear before a parliamentary committee. We find situations where at the same time,
is that report public, Bwana Senator?
The report of
creating the CASs.
Creating the CASs. I believe it should be. I haven't taken time
it's not public. You should know. You of all people as a legislator ought to know this.
No, my friend.
You must be able to explain to us.
You know what we do.
You are our representative.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
You are representative.
But we don't man-mark every agency of government and say, you've just done something. Can I see how you did it? And that what
but surely,
I mean, honestly,
Senator
these appointments were made last week, 7 days ago.
Senator Aaron, you as the leader of majority cannot come to the tackle here and tell us at you've not seen that public report. You ought to be
my friend, do you know
as a leader of majority,
do you know how reports come to parliament?
As a leader of majority, remember, you are no longer the senator of just Nandi. Kericho, sorry. You're actually the leader of Kenyans.
That's true.
In Senate. And therefore you cannot come to the
I table reports from Parliament every afternoon at 2:30, including today.
And I'm sad to hear you say you have not seen the report on the creation.
Because
actually expanding the cabinet. You know, okay, we'll give you the benefit of doubt.
Yeah, because this is done how many days ago?
You'll try and surface the report within a week.
But I'm not on Friday. But I'm not
even the reports that I tabled, like the ones I tabled yesterday afternoon, after a particular process, you know, when they complete, they've said we have since appointed. They have not even assumed the office. How can the report be out? They have not even assumed office.
We'll excuse you.
No, not an excuse.
But you see,
no, you will be responsible enough to know that wait for them to at least even take up office.
Senator,
then we can ask, what process did you follow?
Senator, you earlier on referred to Article 10 on national values and principles of governance, and one of them being accountability. Now, you don't create an office and then say, expect the report later. A report ought to have come earlier. Even you, as a leader of majority, ought to have, for example, tabled that report.
But where was the responsibility?
The responsibility was not the law. No. Listen, Ekuru. Until the process is completed, honestly, you want to tell me now, for every government policy decision midway through the process, I'll be asking and saying what has been done. I mean, I have told you every afternoon at 2:30, I tabled reports from different state agencies, auditor general, I don't know, controller of budget, then they say it's after the completion of a process. Otherwise, what you are asking me to be is to be like a traffic cop.
No.
So that every now and then I stop a government agency and say,
yes.
No. Because then I will not be oversight. What I will be doing is that I'll have turned state agencies into marionettes where I said, okay, turn this way, do that. I mean, that's not what it's expected.
You can create whatever excuse you want to create. But you see, CS appointments are a product of a process. Kenyans are asking, Taklers are asking, where is that process? Why were we not?
Is the process complete? Let me ask you.
Yes.
It's not. No. How can it be complete? They haven't reported to office.
It is, you know, in terms of the report. Yeah. All I was asking you, I don't expect you to take full responsibility on the 50 appointees. But
at least to know what process was used. That's what you're saying.
Exactly.
And listen, that's why I told you, Aukot, Daktari, please also be a good listener. Because you speak to people who listen to you. And it's always good to also, don't just try to speak, listen. This is an explanation that I have given you. That I know there is a process that has been done. But to the best of my knowledge, that process is yet to be completed. It will be completed
even
once
the report.
And we'll
once this. Yes, exactly. Because even the report has to feature who went to which state department, what qualifications they exhibited, how the interviews were done, what were they, when were they appointed. Then finally, we will be handed a report
I think
Parliament.
we are talking about cross purposes. I was speaking about the report from the PSC that actually established this office, the public participation. That's the report I was asking for.
About public participation.
Yes, that
I'm sure it should maybe come as one report. Maybe you hold the view that after PSC is dispensed of the matter, but you can't divorce PSC from this exercise, even of appointing, because they're the ones who did the interviews.
Those are two different things, Senator.
But I'll pass. He'll give us a report.
Yeah.
Give us a report.
That
public participation report.
Yes, that actually report is not there.
That Kenyans say they want the extra CS. Yes, I think it's a burden on you. That you'll give us that report too, so we can justify that process. We'll open Bunga la Mwenyeji shortly, but before that, of course, there's something that Kenyans really want to hear, and it is about the strategy by government to reverse the cost of living, and I mean. You have admitted that yes, the cost of living is high, but it didn't start today. It's always been high, and we saw it. We are Kenyans. We've been around, and we actually had we had the stories of Ukraine, Russia, and all that was happening, and the general global recess in terms of economic recess. Now, what is the plan by the government to ensure that it can actually catalyze a recovery, an economic recovery, and also ensure that Kenyans are able to live in a modest way? They're not even asking to live in luxury. They're saying we just want to live modestly, that we can have the dignity of being a Kenyan citizen in a country that.
So I'll pick up.
Can I add another question? Senator, you know it's rare to meet leader of majority. So leo acha tukulize maswali yote. Your deputy president earlier said that the government is
call him our deputy president.
He's the deputy president. My apologies. Our deputy president earlier on said that serikali ni kampuni, kuna shareholders. What is your view on that?
No, that's not true. I'll answer that.
No, but he said it publicly.
No, he didn't say. That's not what he said. I'll tell you. It was in.
Can we play the clip?
It was actually in Kericho, so I'll help you. I was in that function.
Can we play the clip?
I was in.
Where you put the clip?
In fact, I'm the one who prompted him.
Don't. We just want you to clarify. You know,
I'll clarify.
Also say maybe it was just a,
No, I'll help you understand. I'll help you understand. Like I told you, don't be a victim of negative news from them or false fake news from them.
I watched the clip.
Yes, but I'll help you.
Okay.
And I'll even quote verbatim. You know? So I'll first
but our researchers are already looking for that clip. You put up your clip.
No problem. They'll help you get it.
Yes.
So I'll go to the first question first on intervention on the cost of living.
Yes, that's very key.
Especially on food, because this is part of what people really struggle with, at least to be able to eat and not stay hungry or face hunger like many of our citizens continue to do. You'll remember that during the last administration, unfortunately, for whatever reason, and I've really struggled to look for a good reason why that was done, but I can't get it other than just to imagine the probability was just due to bad politics that existed then. The government stopped the fertilizer subsidy program, where we used to subsidize production, and we would pick selected farmers from across the country, people who actually grow purposefully to feed the rest of a country, because there are farmers who produce what ordinarily you wouldn't call the high value crops, but they use part of their land and they sell portions of it for the rest of us to comfortably eat here in Nairobi and different parts of the country. So I was thinking about it and said, so how do we meet their cost of production? Because otherwise, because they too, like other citizens, deserve to earn out of their labor. And I was thinking, and that informed the decision, and said, let's form a fertilizer subsidy program. And it ran successfully from 2013 all the way to about 2018 when it was stopped. When that was stopped, then things began to go south, because the farmers then said, okay, if you have stopped this program, for a bag of maize that would otherwise in the North Rift where you come from retail for 3,500 or 4,000, they said we are not taking anything less than 5,000. Why? Because, I mean, the cost of fertilizer alone had shot up to 7,000 Kenya shillings, and that became really difficult for them. So when we came in, we decided that let's first of all, part of what are the lessons that we learned from the 2013 to 2018 program is that on many occasions you'll find that yes, there are bags of maize that have been sent to Kitale, to Cheruiyot, to Nandi, I don't know to where. But when you physically meet farmers in the village, they tell you, that program, only Ekuru benefited from it in this village and maybe another person there. So we mapped out every part of this country that is arable and had chiefs register on the farmers together with the size of land that you have, and did a simple study and understood that, for example, if you're a maize growing community or region, the bags of fertilizer that will comfortably fit you per acre will be, say, 2 bags of fertilizer. And you have maybe 4 acres. Then we will register for you and say, we know that Mr. So-and-so has 4 acres of land under which he's cultivating maize. Therefore, his requirements are 4 by 2 is 8 bags of fertilizer. And it's entered into the system. And that has been done across the country, completed, such that whatever we are doing now is not guesswork. As we speak today, I think I saw the figures yesterday, about 4.5 million bags had already been distributed to various farmers from different parts of the country. Of course, that program also has its difficulties. And if you watched what I spoke about in Kapsabet on Sunday, is that I said we need to decentralize it more. Because unfortunately now people have got to go and pick them from NCPB stores only. I said there can be a better collaboration between county governments and national, so that instead of somebody traveling 30 kilometers to an NCPB store to go and pick 2 bags of fertilizer, which is not even economically a sensible thing to do, let's decentralize it so that it's sent either to the sub-county at the very least, or even better, because we can put, as government can put resources to it, you send it to the ward, so that a farmer just walks to a particular secure go down that is either paid for by the county and manned. And you know, because we now have the details of every farmer across the country, captured on data, safely cleaned up, and the size of land. So there's no these cases of exaggeration where a particular farmer, somebody will take 500 bags and go and share it with differently. So what are we doing about it? It's going, instead of paying 7,200, which farmers used to pay, they are now paying 3,500, which is 50% of the cost. So you are at least helping farmers to produce cheaply. which is something that's part of the solution. But that alone is not going to solve the problem, because unfortunately our farmers will produce anywhere in excess of about 10 to 12 million bags. Our requirements as a country is about 40 million bags per month. I'm just talking about staple food. You know, ugali is our staple. And therefore, that's why each year we import almost another 50% of our demand from neighboring counties and the Comesa region. So what is it that government has done? You remember the failed Galana Kulalo project? Lessons were learned out of it. They, as we speak today, one of the leading governments learned the lesson that they want the best people to try and do business. So that exercise or that project has now been commercialized or put into a PPP project where people.
I thought Raila went to launch that project.
It's been around for a while, so I wouldn't be. I think from handshake or not even. Yeah, I think maybe handshake or something. But I mean, we harvested very little out of it, and that's part of the lesson that has been learned. That when government agencies try to run it, they don't do it well. So what do? You look for private players who have the capital, but also the expertise to be able to produce more and cheaply. So there are people who have made bids. I think one of the local companies should be Twiga Feeds, or I don't know. I need to get the exact name. They've bid. Unfortunately, the water that is there can only sustain up to 20,000 hectares. And they have been told, while you may want to plant other high value crops, our biggest demand right now, unfortunately, in terms of what we consume as a country, maize tops the list, then followed by rice, is that let's limit, first of all, that conversation about, the utilization of that 20,000 hectares to be purely about maize. And they have begun that particular exercise. They're installing right now. You know, when you do 20,000 fully automated, you produce it even cheaply than our farmers in the other region who have to plow by hand and the rest. So probably if they're producing a bag at maybe 2,000 Kenya shillings, because of economies of scale, these guys will be able to produce it maybe even at 1,500 and make sure that our national grain reserves are filled up. They don't compete with our farmers because our farmers will still have something to sell, but at least they save us in the sense that we will not have the embarrassing situation of having to import or even seek for food aid from other countries. What additionally is being done so that that becomes sustainable? There is a plan to turn and push that thing from 20,000, which is viable right now, to 400,000. How do you do it? What you are lacking is water to be able to irrigate. And the dam is being constructed. There have been conversations about getting also a private player who will charge the people who grow. The private companies that we have talked about, remember we said we've turned it into a PPP project. The private players that will be growing on this land will pay for the water and the dam that is being built, so that it wouldn't be a cost to us as a country. So what does that do for you? It does two things. It makes sure that as a country, at least you produce cheaply, so that because now we will be able to know how much you produced for. You will not be able. You will not charge Kenyans exorbitant amount. Secondly, it reduces our import pressure, which is part of what is pushing the dollar to almost 150, because we spend a lot of money. I think in excess of 400 billion just importing food alone. Nothing else. Something that we can commercially grow.
On that point, I want to interject and ask this question. And this again from my experience in having worked in other countries. You see, the moment you make the conversation becomes dominant about two currency in a country, you are actually killing our economy. Because the conversation around the dollar is becoming so prominent than actually the shilling. I saw that in Liberia, where actually the Liberian dollar was killed because there's preference about the
dollar, the US dollar. Yeah.
And I'm afraid in Kenya today, we are talking more about the dollar
than the shilling.
And I think you guys need to do something about that, because
on that one I agree with you 100%. You know, I asked somebody the other day, they were quoting for me something, and they gave me a quote in dollars. I asked them, what's wrong with you? I'm in Kenya. I am a Kenyan. The only currency I have access to is Kenya shillings. What is this obsession? And I even asked somebody, is it time that we stop this pressure and conversation about and made sure that actually the formally recognized form of tender or currency of trade is a Kenya shilling.
You have to do that because the other day I went with a friend of mine. I will not mention this restaurant, a very high-end restaurant somewhere in Westland.
You know you're a rich man.
And no, I'm not a rich man. I struggle. I'm hustling. You see, and what annoyed me is that we were just curious to find out.
Yes.
And they were quoting dollars.
Yeah.
So we asked them why.
Yeah.
This is a shilling economy.
But if you're importing,
but you guys need to do that.
We must pressure CBK.
Apartments, hotels, and whatever. There has to be a directive.
Yes, from
we have
CBK.
to use the Kenya shilling.
I agree with you on that. That one I agree with you.
Okay.
Let's go now to the Rigathi question. You know, I don't want to forget his question on shareholding. Rigathi was in Kericho. There was a function for a Thanksgiving of our peers, a friend of mine. So while speaking, I'm the one actually who challenged him and said to him, Bwana Deputy President, you know we voted for this administration to the last man. So the people that are gathered here, when you arise to speak, will be waiting to hear our promises intact, because a political process is like an investment. We invested in this administration. Are we going to reap where we invested? So when he rose to speak, he said, I agree with what Senator is saying. Serikali ni kama kampuni. Unaweka shares. Pahali umeweka ndio utavuna. So he didn't reduce the whole government apparatus into a shareholding exercise the way, you know, he used the words, the Swahili words, ni kama. It's like a company. He didn't say that it is a company. And you are well read, well educated. I hear sometimes you even say you went to Alliance. There's a rumor. So you can't tell me.
I never went to Alliance.
Oh, okay. I thought you're part of. You're like other friends of mine.
Just I went to.
But I know you speak good English and understand it. When you say it is like, and when you say it is, aren't they worlds apart? That's simply what he said.
But see, Senator.
But when you say it is like,
and that's where you go wrong. Because and that's where you go wrong. Even for you should not be even propagating that idea. That first of all is a wrong analogy, because it even goes against Article 1 of the Kenya Constitution, where the sovereign will vests in the people. And you see, you guys are thinking in terms of electioneering period. You need to grow from that, because Rigathi Gachagua has also been repeatedly been cited as saying, oh, this is what we're milima. He needs to stop that. That kind of talk is cheapening the presidency. Because, you know, should William Ruto to even resign? I don't even want to wish him anything bad, but should he even resign? Rigathi Gachagua will be our president. But when he starts talking in terms of regionalizing government, this is what milima, ati serikali ni kama kampuni, he should not even be talking like that to begin with. This is now our government. It does not matter.
It belongs to all.
Whether you voted. And you see, when you use such analogy, first of all, you are drawing a wedge between the people of Kenya. Because the reality is that during political contestation, there are those who are supporting this Mrengo, those Mrengo. But the moment you form government, a government ought to be unitary.
But in reality,
but so that even when you use such analogy, such
in reality,
because we are not
okay, let me listen to you. Let me listen. Okay,
you know, let's roll. I've seen time is not on our side.
Okay. You see, we are also not new in Kenya. We know that when people use such analogies, they are passing a message to us and telling us. And he said it, he even went ahead and said, mimi kazi yangu ni kuchunga watu hapo status. Mwenye mpanga zaidi pale, nikiona hakusupport na mrudisha hapa nyumba.
But is it not only fair? Is it not only fair?
You know, it's political talk. Which, and you know, government policy is not made on political talk. Give me an example. You know where I want you now to be worried? Is if you are told that Rigathi Gachagua has chaired a meeting, an official government meeting where government policy is decided and has given direction that in running out the last mile project, please only take it to the regions that voted for us. Otherwise, you know, in political space, people talk and they use different analogies. They cite examples to excite people and quote. I mean, that's part of the richness of our culture. It doesn't necessarily mean, you know, I don't mind that talk. If for sure you are able to justify to me and say that in going about his official duties as deputy president, let's say implementing and assisting the president in rolling out government policies, there's a clear demonstration that Rigathi Gachagua has excluded other parts of the country, then I'd say and agree with you and say that that is extremely wrong. Otherwise, what is wrong with political banter?
Isn't it part of what makes our politics interesting? Political banter for me is not a problem during political contestation, electioneering. But the moment you form a government which we all expect and look forward to, I don't think that's a forum for you to play political banter.
Okay, all right. 35 minutes past 9 a.m.
Oh, okay.
Now, there's a question for you, Emel. As from Ekuru Brand, ask Senator that there are some farmers yet to receive the fertilizers or forger text and rains already here. Kuna watu wajapata mbolea.
I know for a fact. That's why tomorrow we have a tour with Cabinet Secretary Linturi, because after part of what, you know how William Ruto works, he doesn't believe in sitting in the office, and part of what is expected of ministers is that occasionally they make impromptu stop in almost all depots just to supervise and see how the exercise is going on. You know, fortunately now there's a system that knows that in this particular part of the country, there are X number of farmers. As we speak, what percentage have given. So it's just a report that he receives, but it's good to also go and verify. So tomorrow actually he has a tour of Trans Nzoia, Kericho and Nandi. Part of it is because I have raised a complaint with him and told him there are parts of my county where even in the NCPB stores, not a bag of fertilizer has reached, and farmers are on the queue waiting. So he needs to find ways of expediting. So I agree with him. It's true. The rains are here. We really thank God. I almost sat up the entire night there that last weekend in Kericho just to listen to the sound of rain on the roof, because it was really difficult. I think this is the worst drought we've had in like 40 years. And I see now we are getting into that planting season. So it's upon the Ministry of Agriculture now to push them and ensure that if there is something that he can do as minister to expedite that process, so that at least people can get that fertilizer before we go deep into the rain season, would be a good thing. So I agree with him. He's right, and we shall be pushing him to ensure that every registered farmers gets it.
If you can see an headphone near you, please have your headphones on. Tufunge bunga la mwananchi. Bunga la mwananchi nambari ni 0731027727. Bunga la mwananchi iko wazi. Nambari ni 0731027727. Bunga liko wazi. 0731027727. Meanwhile, let me look at the comment section. I can see YouTube is on fire. Mambo imechamuka pale YouTube kidogo. George K, tell Mr. Ekuru to bring back the punguza mzigo. He had the best ideas, but Kenyans were sleeping. Now they seem to know why electing people doesn't work, but practical solutions is the way forward. Memoma Tim, good job, JB, keep it up, asante. Kazi nzuri, JT Waweru. John Bitok, KCB and Family Bank are the host bank for the ASLA fund. Hence the boycott by Baba. It's uncalled for. Oh, okay. I was trying to actually understand why KCB was being boycotted. Well, now I get it. Kumbe ni mambo ya ASLA fund. Haya, Kebrotich, Kasia Santa Sami Orengo, will economic issues be solved by political action? I suggest they create an economic council. Thomas Ocheng, Aaron Cheruiyot is on point in his submissions. I wish Dr. Ekuru would become a problem solver instead of problem finder. He has been for 10 years. His brilliance should be tapped. Okay, so Elias, look, Punguza Mzigo was a brilliant idea. Dr. Ekuru, you should be an advisor to government. We need your brain. So, Badia Kimniatich Rugut, let Ekuru understand UDA can't give job to guys who are opposed to the very manifesto they were elected for. Thomas Acheng, Bitok, the cost of living is in Raila's facade. His mandamanos is all about his loss in 2022 elections. I'm from Siaya, but Raila has lost it. All right. Okay. Bunga la Mwananchi, good morning. Bunga la Mwananchi, jambo. Bunga la Mwananchi, good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, how are you?
Good morning, Gerald.
Leta habari.
Mr. Salama. I want to ask one question.
Okay.
And I think that is going to Mheshimiwa Aaron Cheruiyot. I'm someone from Baringo County.
Yes.
But currently residing in Uasin County.
Okay.
But the other day when the deputy IG was in Baringo, I had to rush there because some of us ni wenye tumepigwa na shida ya cattle rustling. One is the majority leader and is the figure of the Republic of Kenya.
Okay.
There's some other parts like in Elgeyo Marakwet wamepatiwa NPR. Sisi kama Baringo County tumeuliza kama Baringo North na Baringo South tunauliza NPR hatujawahi patiwa. Juzi deputy IG amekuwa pale, in fact wananchi walikuwa wameleta hasira mpaka walikuwa wanataka kumchapa. But the issue is this. Sisi mpaka lini tulipigia serikali ya Ruto tukijua in 100 days wakati alitupromise, and I think Aaron Cheruiyot was there, akisema kwa Kabarnet Stadium hiyo shida itaisha. 100 days imepita, hiyo shida bado haijaisha. I personally in my house in Kabarnet, I have around 22 IDPs.
22.
Surely. 22 in my own house. Surely. How will this republic handle, will this serikali yenye iko sahi ita handle hii story ya cattle republic? Mpaka juzi tumeamua hata mpaka MCS, I think aliwatch your clip, tukisema hiyo barabara ya kwenda Siati tutafunga, Laikipia wafunge, Elgeyo Marakwet wafunge na Turkana wafunge, tuone hapo kwa tutapitia wapi. Mali imetufikia sasa ni hapo. So hii tutasaidika namna gani? Naona tukituma wabunge sio atuone wanafikisha ujumbe lakini hawasaidiki. Surely hata kama ni kuboma, hata kama umetuletea mpaka nini the Kenya Army, hakuna Kenya wametusaidia. Ni bombing, they are bombing the opposite thing. Kama saizi like the other day watu msuli fulani hapo na army wako pandile ingine. How will you handle? Hata sisi tukifanya kazi Eldoret saizi tunafanya na wasiwasi because how are your people? How are they doing? Secondly, number 2, ndio nimalize. I think the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua is the Deputy President of Republic of Kenya. He is not the Deputy President of a certain community. Na kama Aaron Cheruiyot najua wanakunywa chai pamoja kuongea, mwambia sisi kama wananchi, hii story ya kusema mimi ni mtoto ya Maumau, sisi watu ya mlima, awachana naye. He is the figure of Republic of Kenya. Na wawache siasa sasa. Mambo ya kuvutana siasa tuliwacha, wakuje let them deliver what they promised Kenyans on Kenya Kwanza campaigns. Deliver to us because some of us right now, and I think Aaron Cheruiyot is here in this thing. Sisi wengine kama mimi siwezi najitetea ni sawa, mimi niko sawa. Kuna watu wanakula 1 meal and even not meal, jioni wanakula strong tea wakilala. I want them to ask to assist us. Kama kuna chakula wapeleke ground, Baringo North and Baringo South. Hao watu wanalala njaa. And I think wasikize mambo ya MP Kamuren na MP Maklas. Those people are going really through. Wasting. In fact, he is the one who can table that thing in the Senate, ipitishwe na washugulikiwe. Na hao watu wenye wameumia, can they be refunded? Wanaweza saidiwa. Because kuna watu wamepoteza vitu zao mingi sana. So mimi sina mambo mengi, ambia Aaron Cheruiyot atafanye kazi, wawachane na mambo mingi.
Haya, amesikia. Haya, bunge la mwananchi. Bunge la mwananchi kwa wazi nambari 7310277727. La boss KE, about dollar issue, why are we still paying visa applications fee using dollar? In Kenya, a country using shillings. Now the dollar is in a mess. A year ago, I would pay. Acha tusikie mwananchi mwingine anasemaje. Good morning, bunge la mwananchi. Na kama ameingia nyasi kidogo. Okay, a year ago I would pay 16,000, but now I'm paying 25,000. That's close to a double, actually, of what they would pay initially. Aaron Kipkemboy, right? Bunge la mwananchi. Bunge la mwananchi, jambo. Good morning. Bunge la mwananchi, good morning.
Jambo bwana Gerald.
Salama sana boss. Sema.
This is Kipkemboy, my boy from Kishara Ward. Say hi to my Senator Aaron Cheruiyot.
Amekusalimia. Senator watu wako.
The issue I want to talk is we need to finish once and for all.
Okay.
This issue of Raila Odinga picketing. I thank our lady Ekuru Aukot. He has touched something very important on His Excellency Raila Odinga enjoying the benefits of retirement. How can someone be enjoying the benefits of retirement and disrupting the economy of Kenya?
Okay.
Our leader of majority, His Excellency Aaron Cheruiyot, is listening to me. Deal with this man once and for all. We as the youth are really in pain because the people who are being used by this mzee called Raila Odinga is the youth. I saw Sakaja saying that the revenue collection was just about 50%. Imagine where was the 50% loss. The people of Kenya are really suffering because of this mzee.
What do you recommend yourself if you are the president? What do you do?
It was the president. You had talked about the issue of when the people when the ICC cases. This man should be prosecuted. A student in Maseno University was killed, and he was not killed by different people. He was killed by the Azimio people. In Kisumu, vehicles were vandalized. The UDOVs were vandalized. And the demonstration was being encouraged by the same Azimio man. This man should be taken to court to represent his people who vandalized. So this man should be finished once and for all. The second issue I wasn't to touch on is the issues of fertilizer. I think our Senator Aaron Cheruiyot also touched. We will be receiving His Excellency Mentika Linturi and Kericho. The issue of fertilizer, people here upper kwa ground view to me different. It is really hard for a farmer in Roret to go to as far as Kericho. That is almost 30 kilometers to go for fertilizer. Encourage or welcome that issue whereby we also get involved with the county government and bring the fertilizer down where people can easily reach. So I want to thank you. Let us move on this way. Congratulations, our senator. You're doing good things. Ekuru, we welcome your brains to the government. You have such nice brains that can help solve problems in the government.
Cheruiyot hataki mimi ningie kwa serikali.
Anakuingiza. Kuna barabara ya kuingia kwa serikali. Haya. In the interest of time, now I want you to ukishikanisha na hiyo.
The two questions.
Yes, ukishikanisha na hiyo. Niko na swali yako moja kwa sababu ya masaa. Now we've seen yesterday from the cabinet dispatch, of course there were the conventional issues of privatization of government agencies. When you started your conversation, you talked about this scandal between Helios and is it called Jamhuri Holdings and Telkom Kenya, where you're talking about 6 billion of taxpayers' money that the government cannot even trace where it went. And now Telkom Kenya was sold out, or its shares were recovered by the money paid. Lipwa shares, the AG is saying they don't have the shares on Telkom Kenya. And taxpayers' money is at risk. And the biggest conversation here on what has been raised on yesterday's cabinet dispatch is that the government can now roll out privatization of government parastatals without the parliamentary due process. Now, you are looking, we have a backdrop of this case of Telkom Kenya, where atuelewi pesa imeenda namna gani.
You don't have to worry much about that. Because for them to get it, they must first pass it through parliament. Will we be mad people to legislate ourselves out of work? So you don't have to worry about that. That's a proposed bill which is coming to parliament. It's part of the normal routine, how bills are approved in cabinet, government printers, and it's sent to us. Of course, during public participation, we'll take it to Kenyans, and we will. By the time we conclude that bill, we will give Kenyans. There's good justification. There's good reason. I don't think anybody sensible will say that it's a wrong thing to privatize some of these entities. Part of the reason why some of the good, reputable enterprises like, say, KenGen, even Kenya Pipeline to a certain extent have succeeded in serving the public but not being a burden to mwananchi, is because there are good benefits they enjoy by having private investors in it, so that they keep an eye on how the institution run, as opposed to it being a public institution. But we must safeguard at the end of the day public interest, so that you ensure two things don't happen. One, the public don't lose money. But two, and most importantly, is that they provide the services they've been doing to the public at an affordable cost. So we will give you a good law. You don't have to worry about that. Then the last two things is the lady from Baringo. I didn't record her name. She's spot on. Sarah, I think. When I was in Cabernet, for sure, we gave that assurance to the people of Baringo and the North Rift generally, that we have to end this menace. It's taking a bit longer than we anticipated. Probably, I know there are disputes about the approach, they have been, the problem with this banditry problem. And the truth of the matter, I've listened to the conversation. I've listened to leaders from Marakwet. I've listened to leaders from Turkana, from Pokot, from Baringo. The unfortunate thing, unfortunately, Samburu, is that these bandits are a very tightly knit network that unfortunately transcend all these communities. Yet, on many occasions, people just want to speak about the other community that is hurting this one. Perhaps we must also push the conversation to be, apart from the force alone, to also, there are two ways you can resolve a communal crisis. You can use force, but at the end of the day, you must also have a conversation about the people. These criminals, unfortunately, are found even amongst the communities that are hurting. And for one reason or the other, either it's through threats or whatever reason, they succeed to keep the community quiet about it. Because I know for a fact, because I follow this conversation very broadly, that there is no community amongst all this that we are saying are affected that will not say we don't have bandits of our own. And that's the honest truth. The veracity of how many there are. I think the Pokots here are being hit harder because they have a bigger capacity. Either they have bigger capacity or they have many. But the truth of the matter is that, first of all, the resident communities must be able to partner together with the police and have an exercise that will ensure that we flush out the criminals, whether without having a cry of which community they come from. The unfortunate bit is that, like I have said, it's taken a bit longer, but I still believe in the reassurance that we gave to the people of that part of the country that this will be the administration that will end that thing with finality. So that first you remove the criminal elements, but second and most importantly, you put the interventions that will stop further generations from looking at this practice as a way of livelihood. Because that's a bigger problem. That's a motivation.
Senator, there are two things.
Marginalization,
yes,
actually.
There are two things I want you to consider taking to the floor of Senate. And hopefully maybe you can also speak to your counterpart in the National
Assembly. Yeah.
Number one, let's reduce the talk around cattle rustling, because there's no such thing as cattle rustling. This is robbery with violence and people committing murder, destroying property. We need to speak about whatever happens in the northern part of Kenya, from the criminal law that we have in this country. And I think that's something really we need to focus on. And I think that lingua needs to be the dominant conversation.
Nomenclature.
Yeah, it has to be. And I think you need to bring this up. Number two, I want you to invoke the provisions of Article 6 of the Constitution, devolution of services and national organs. Part of the reason why this has become a culture, bad criminal culture in the northern part of Kenya, is absentee government. Government in the northern part of Kenya is very symbolic. If you interview these security forces, they will tell you, we are being sent there, we don't have enough resources, we are not supported, no allowance, no nothing. So government is not being felt on the ground. And some of these issues, we have discussed it. In fact, President William Ruto, I remember I had a conversation with him about the problems in Kapedo area and Suguta. And I told William, that time he was deputy president, let's stop scatting the bush about this issue. We know the people who are sponsoring violence because that area is resource rich. If government is present and exploit economic opportunity in that part from the entire Kerio Valley up to the Suguta Valley area, you won't believe the kind of economy will actually grow in that part of Kenya. So that is, I think, a message you need to take to your administration, the Senate.
All right. Okay. All right. In the interest of time, tackle of the day, very quickly. 30 seconds. What's your tackle of the day?
Start with the
Is your punching back?
No, I think for me, Bitok, I'm happy that you bring, representative of the people like Senator Haron Cheruiyot.
Yes.
I think they should come here, and I feel that they are not explaining themselves more to the people of Kenya. Like you see somebody call here somewhere, Cynthia saying, can we talk about the plan they have on reducing the cost of living? I had so much hope on this government, but as time goes by, we are losing hope kabisa. So I think, Senator,
And I
Yes,
think you have
many of
spoken
you,
into it. Yes.
yeah, you need to come and maybe explain yourself more. I think you're not explaining yourself more. To speak more, because that's the whole question of accountability from representatives like you. Kenyans need to understand, like that's what I was asking you earlier, like the PSC report that actually created these chief administrative secretaries. Now there are two views. And I know my law society is actually going to court on this to challenge the 50.
From 27 to 50.
From 23. 23 to 50. So again, the explanation is not coming out clearly. And by the way, and when some of us criticize you, we don't want jobs. Because we know government cannot employ every Kenyan. It cannot absorb everyone. So sometimes take our criticism.
We do.
Usiseme we are your enemies because we are calling you out.
No.
Because we just said we are japatiwa kazi. No.
We've just said be fair in your criticism. You know, honestly, many of the criticism that we get is totally unjustified, or probably from lack of understanding of what it takes to turn around a battered economy. You know, it's not just as easy as a plug and play exercise that you need to do this. For example, you walk in the debt situation, then you have the worst drought in 40 years. You know, conditions that you can't just quickly overnight say that this has been done. Then we have these fake subsidy programs that were being run that were benefiting only a few well-connected boys. Would you understand that we spent close to 29 billion running a subsidy program? Yet I am still looking, apart from Edwin Sifuna, I don't know any other Kenyan who ever bought unga at 100 shillings. I've tried to look the length and breadth of the country, you can't get them. Those millers, unfortunately, even when they were recently invited for a meeting with the president, they came with pending bills of close to another 5 billion. And they were told, please, we didn't come here to discuss what you owe. We don't know what you agreed with those people. We are here to discuss how are we going to bring down this cost from now going forward. Whatever you did in the past, that has nothing to do with us. So I hear you when you say that please explain more on the interventions you're doing. Remember what you're doing in the affordable housing space, just to ensure that we give people a decent living. But while doing it, we provide jobs for many young people. When we continue to launch it across different parts of the country, it's giving jobs and employment to many people, while at the end of the day, ensuring people live a decent life. I know universal healthcare also was a big promise on our part. It's taken longer. We had anticipated that by December it will be rolled out, but my conversations with those responsible tells me that in another about a month or two at maximum, we should be able to have done the two main things that we did, which is number one, to reduce the figure on from 500 per family for those that are in the low income bracket, and see what we can add on top for those that have ability like myself to pay beyond the 1700, so that you're able to package and ensure that those who have absolutely no means of paying are still catered for under UHC. So those are just interventions that are being raised, so that eventually you see you have an opportunity to have a country where we can all feel proud to be part and parcel of. Of course, all that can be achieved if we stop the hypocrites that are stopping government from doing its agenda by causing unnecessary disruption to the lives of ordinary Kenyans. All that, those police officers that you see on the streets, tear gas being thrown, business being interrupted, that's a greater effect to our GDP as a country. And you know, it's not that we are no longer the regional superpower that we used to be. People are looking down south to Tanzania and seeing that there is more cohesiveness in that society. So an investor seated somewhere in New York with all the work that we are trying to do to tell people that come and invest in Kenya because you've got the best human capital and the rest. If people see the kind of scenes that you're seeing, like what we saw on Monday, then people begin to think twice and say, is it really worth it? And especially now with what is happening globally, where due to the raise of interest rate by Federal Reserve, big corporations from that part of the world don't have the investment appetite outside their country anymore. So you really have to give them a better package than what their government is offering. Otherwise, we'll find ourselves in the same situation down the line. So it's just to give hope and courage to Kenyans that we're on plan. We have streamlined as well revenue collection so that we don't have, I hear people even like Martha Karua speak about, we are being overtaxed. And I am disappointed, because I thought the moral edict of society is that as you age, you become more truthful. You don't start lying. The truth of the matter is that since we came to government, there's no finance bill that has been brought by this administration. The taxes that Kenyans are paying are simply what we found in place. The only thing we've done...
No, but you have introduced it through administrative and...
No. Listen, Ekuru. Please, let me help you. Please, sometimes ask questions and not how to
be. The taco don't lie.
No, listen, I've told you I don't lie. The truth of the matter is that we've enforced compliance. That's all we are doing. There's no way of introducing tax by policy. The only way of introducing tax in Kenya is via the finance bill. And that's the reality. We haven't done any. We've only ensured that the big boys connected in town who are flogging in containers into the country without paying anything are now being forced to pay. And that's part of the people that are sponsoring these demonstrations you're seeing in town. We want the same way a villager down in Kapedo, in Roret, where our friend has called from, and in Siaya, the same way they dutifully pay taxes, we want the big boys in this town also, the connected, the ones who own banks and telcos and betting farms and importing containers, we want them to equally pay so that we can all contribute into making Kenya better.
But the other thing, Mheshimiwa, you are not doing very well. You see, you are describing, for example, the disruptions. And I think as a government, you have a responsibility to Kenyans. If you know the organizers behind these disruptions, which is costing you guys.
I think
those ones I've told you, they'll be dealt with.
I think we already passed that. Now, I want to send you, Mheshimiwa.
But it's hurting the economy because yesterday, Sakaja said,
the deal now.
Only connects with
I'm waiting to see how you do. Now, Mheshimiwa, as you go on to send you, and I want to send you from with a message from citizens and the tacklers who join us every single morning, and where other stations where I also do shows. The people who are losing confidence in government are not opposers. There are people who voted for it and supported it. You can hear from the calls and all that. And they are saying there's no problem. We understand the situation as it is globally and whatever it is. We know what is going on. But it looks like the opposition is speaking more than the government. The government is not telling its story on what it is doing. Ndio saa zingine pia kama wewe ni mgonjwa pia umewekwa kwa kitanda hospitali kwa ward na daktari unasikia tu anapiga binja huko anazunguka akuja kudungi alete dawa akwambie nini na kuuma anakwambia tulia kwa kitanda we need to speak. So these supporters are saying that they want to hear you speaking more, at least speaking out the plans that you have. Because without that, then the other message sells. It's a battle of messages now, as it is at this point. So they want to be reassured more that this is what they voted for, and they want to know that you have a plan for these people. So there's a message I want to send with you. When you meet the president, and also with other leaders that you're going to interact with, you need to make them understand that the citizens want to listen to them more and get to understand what plans they have about agriculture. What plans do you have? It's about healthcare. What's the plans you have? About housing. Every other sector of the government, they want to know what the plans that you have.
Thank you.
That is it for me this morning. Thank you so much for making time and for coming in. Asante sana daktari for coming to the tackle and for tackling majority leader and every citizen who's joined us this morning from wherever you have been. Thank you so much. It has been the Siasa Wednesday edition of the 22nd of March 2022 and it ends now. Bye bye and see you tomorrow on the Diaspora edition. Bye bye.
Asante.